Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number... No idea, doesn't matter. I am super organised at the moment. We are ahead on the show and I have another amazing guest for you today. Now, last time we spoke about the medical industry and how that feeds into healthcare, we had the amazing Hazel Wallace, the food medic, on the show, and we went into kind of like the NHS and where we feel the medical industry is innovating and intervening into preventative healthcare, and it's kind of along the lines of what we're going to talk about today. So I've got a doctor on the show, but before I introduce this doctor who's done incredible things and has a new initiative that we're going to talk about today, I'm going to read a little story of how we got introduced. So a lady called Hannah Winter introduced us, and the reason why I like to read stories is because I like to remind people that the information that we have on the show is immensely powerful. So Hannah said the reason why that she connected us is that she realised from listening to my show that she loved the mindset side of health and fitness, and I'm therefore now doing a master's in sport and exercise psychology, which I'm loving. Your show gave me the confidence to make the change and go after what I want in life, so thank you. And now Hannah's connected me with the doc, and now we're talking, and now we're going to give out amazing information. So that's why I love this podcast. It's more than just nutrition or training or anything like that. We're making big changes, and that's incredible. Anyway, to my guest. My guest today, Dr. Carl Brandt. Hello.
Hi. Good to be in your show. Look forward to the talk.
So, Doc, I should have asked before we went on air, has your name got a silent D or silent T at the end?
Well, now it's a Danish name, so I would say, I'll pronounce it very differently. I'll say Brandt, but Brandt is fine.
I can do that, Dr. Brandt.
Brandt, yes, good. Dr. Brandt, that's fine.
So, Doc, I'll call you Carl for the show. That is easiest.
Yeah, cool.
Talk to me about your background and where we are today. You've done a lot of incredible things. You can take as much time as you want, but paint a little bit of a background of you and how we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Well, I'm a GP. Been working as a doctor for more than 20 years. My debut into this field of coaching and being for the patients, also with regard to how they live their lives. It really started now, I guess, 20 years ago when I had a research article in The Lancet showing that if you say smoker's lung instead of chronic bronchitis, when you talk with patients that are getting bronchitis due to smoking, then you can actually have a much larger number of people stop smoking, and correlating the reasons why things are affecting you to the name was really where we started, and from that we launched and that was in 1989. We launched Net Doctor, and it was just at that time the internet was very new. And it was launched primarily in Denmark, but very quickly it expanded to the UK and Germany and other European countries, and became the largest web portal, health web portal in Europe, and which it still is.
Wow.
So taking from there, we went on and we tried to look into how could we help people, because one thing is that you can read something on the web, but that doesn't really change the health of people and doesn't really change their lives. So we went in there and tried to see how could we actually assist people in doing things differently. And we then launched another service called Slanke Doctor or Slimming Doctor, where you got a personal coach online that could then help you change your lifestyle. And that showed to be quite effectful, and we had 140,000 people actually using that service, losing weight and changing lifestyle. It was all digital. And in 2008, we then tried to do it in my practice in the beginning, and then in a number of other practices as well, but having a combination of meeting people face to face and then online support. And that collaborative e-health solution has really proven quite effective, both in Denmark, where we had a small study showing that people lost 7 kilo, which is like 15 pounds, and that they could keep that weight loss for 20 months. This then went on to another study done in Newcastle, where we had Professor Ashley Adamson in charge of a PhD project, where we found that for diabetic men, the same effect was actually possible to get. It was a weight loss of 5.4 kilos, which is like 12 pounds, after 12 months intervention in a regular municipality setting, as it was done back then. And this has then brought us to where we are today, where I'm in charge of the research in Liva, which is a solution that is now being introduced in northeast London and in Yorkshire, in the British diabetes program or prevention program.
Amazing. And that is a huge amount of change. To coach 140,000 people through one of your initiatives is amazing. And obviously, with the rise of the internet, we have seen nutrition coaching absolutely explode, especially in the UK and worldwide. And, you know, it's an area that I'm involved in. I coach a lot of people through the internet, and it's an amazing medium. Now, one of the things we actually talked about before we came on air is this kind of this problem that we have with coaching, and this is really the problem with change as a whole. We can look at information. Information is only part of the problem. There's access to information readily. Look at the internet, it's awash with it. You talked about health coaches and their ability to help people change via actually caring. And there's kind of two things here. We definitely need coaches in the industry that care. So initially, please do talk to me about the research that you did and how you tried to make these changes, but also I then want us to evolve the conversation onto why information isn't actually helping people in its current form and how we look to actually help aid that process. So firstly, let's kind of talk about the health coaching thing.
Looking at the health coaching and the aspects of, as you said, bringing those 140,000 people through the very difficult part of changing your lifestyle, because if you want to change or help a person to change that person's lifestyle, you really have to help them to change their life, and that's difficult. That's not something that just comes, by giving them one or two informations. You really need to touch people, and you need to, and this is quite important to me actually. You need to have a relationship where you can push people, but then you need to be able to catch them. You have to be, but you need to push them, and you need then to catch them afterwards in there and help them going that next step. But the information, because the point is really, my experience is the point is not that people don't know what should be done. The issue is really that they don't see how to fit the right decisions into their everyday life. And that's really very much what this is about, finding where people can do those small things that actually change their lives.
I love how you put that, of being able to push someone and catch them, because it's almost like tough love, in the perspective that people need to be forced a little bit to say, come on. And this is where we see people quite often make dramatic changes in the face of a dramatic test. Like they might get a test from their doctor, and their doctor says, hey, you're pre-diabetic. Do you want to be diabetic? Okay, now we need to change. And sometimes that pushes people over the edge, but really that's the last hurdle. We don't want to get people to that. So in your experience, and this is a topic we love on the show, what do you find are the blocking factors of people changing? What are the hurdles? Because we know how to eat healthily. We know we need to exercise. We know we need to hydrate. What do you see as the reasons why people cannot or feel that they can't do it?
I think the most important thing is that your body is all the time trying to be able to make sure that you can handle the next hunger catastrophe. I mean, that was how the primates was in the beginning, So your body will all the time try to go a little down on how much you have to move. You always try to be a little, get a little more food, so you'll gain a little weight, so you're ready for the next. That's how we are built as humans, basically. So this is what you basically have to go to some extent against. But having said that, what I found out in my research, interviewing the people that have lost weight successfully, is that sometimes normally what really pushed people is some kind of event. And what was interesting was that half of the people, they have had events which we couldn't really intervene with. It would be one's father had a stroke and then she decides, now I want to do something. Another one saying, my husband got diabetes, that was why I changed my lifestyle. So they have kind of things that really they haven't, we couldn't change that. But what's very interesting was the other half. Well, they could say, well, that was because my doctor told me if I didn't do, then this would happen. In some way, that doctor would, he or she were able to push this person and then help them say, and here we have a solution that probably will fit for you. So as a healthcare professional, the thing is to have an honest conversation and find and tell the person how is it going to be, and what's going to happen if you don't do anything. And when then they can see what they're on their route, you have to be understanding. You have to take their hand basically and make sure that they know that you're there for them, and they need to know that this is not, that you have to change a whole bunch of things. I will always, when I have this conversation with patients, I always say, okay, if you want to lose 5 kilos, we're talking about 2 or 3 cookies a day. That's it, or 20 to 30 minutes of a brisk walk a day. That's really what I want you to do. That's all you need. Now I know you can go and do that tomorrow, and also know you can do that for the next week. But we need to find a way so you're going to do it for the rest of your life, and that's what's difficult. And then we are in the game of finding solutions, and then it's extremely important to let the person find the solutions themselves, because they know their life and they know what can be done.
So in that process, which is great, but the thing that process hinges on is that it hinges on an extreme external, extrinsically driven event, which is your doctor saying you need to change. I'm interested in what you're doing and Denmark as a whole, and maybe how that compares to the NHS in the UK. What do you feel, or what are you guys doing with preventative healthcare? Because there's only so much that people can lean on the medical industry, because there's only so much time and money it's got. So we need preventative healthcare solutions. What's happening in Denmark to try and get people to initiate change before they come to the doctor? And how does that compare to what we're doing in the NHS? Because not a lot is kind of really proven that successful so far in the UK with actually wide-scale changes.
I think one of the important aspects of understanding in a Scandinavian setting is that we have been, and this is a strange story, but actually it began in the early 70s where we had this oil crisis, and we had Sundays where you're not allowed to use your car, and that pushed Danes and Swedes to find out other ways to get around, and we got bikes introduced, and Denmark has really become a biking country. When my kids go to school, they take a bike, and when I go to work, I'll take a bike, or I'll walk. It's very much a part of our culture, which also when you look into figures, it seems like the what has happened in Scandinavia, which really haven't happened, I don't think, to that extent in the UK, is that we are becoming a little more active than we have been, because the focus in the last 10 years, we've had the infrastructure to help people use alternatives to transportation and healthy transportation, and because we're talking about a healthy person who if that should be walking 10,000 steps. That's if you're using a car every day forth and back to work, that's a lot of steps. But if you're walking or doing something else, it's not that much actually. So the activity, I would expect that to be higher. And then so that's the one part of it. The other thing is maybe we have still quite a strong culture about how we eat, that we eat only when we eat, if you could say so. We don't eat in front of television. we'll arrange, it's a social thing to eat breakfast together, and it's a social thing to eat dinner together. So that's my best guesses.
With the kind of initiatives around exercise, which we see a lot in the UK as well, like I'd say London is fantastic at this, cycling initiatives. Do you find that by focusing on exercise, it's almost like a small step that people can make, which can actually be quite enjoyable when you get into it? But actually what happens is these things tend to go hand in hand. So if you have an individual that starts to make positive lifestyle changes, movement changes, exercise changes, they naturally want to start eating better, because it almost feels like, well, if you're going to be putting energy into that area, you might as well put even more energy to get more benefit. Because when I think about some of my work, quite a lot of people are either off or on a diet and training. So they join the gym and they start eating better, and then they stop going to the gym and they start eating worse. And it's almost like both go hand in hand, because it's like you might as well reward the effort that you're already putting in.
It's a very interesting discussion, and also this thing about is it eating or is it exercise? What's the more important one? And I've been teaching this both. I've been teaching doctors and I've been teaching medical students in exact this area. And one of the interesting research paper I always refer to is a research paper actually done on in Britain back in around 2000, and it looked into how many calories people were eating in Britain around 1950 compared to 1998. And the interesting thing was that if you look at the number of calories, it was the same.
Right.
I wouldn't have expected that. I would have thought that it had gone up, because we had, burgers, all kinds of things in the 80s and 90s. And the diabetes epidemic was really also starting at that point. So I would have expected it to gone up, but it didn't. But what had really changed, that was how people used cars, and how they used televisions, and how they used computers. So inactivity seems, in my opinion, that's the new killer, inactivity, and it's probably comparable to smoking, actually, if you look at the risk of inactivity. And we have in still, even though that we are maybe not in the same situation in Britain, we still have a population of maybe 20-30% of the Danish population that we put in as inactive, which have a sedentary job where they really don't move around. And then we did this thing was very close to me, because we tested out in my GP a couple of years ago to see how active were we. And what I found out was that when I move around, I thought I'm quite active actually, but I found out I moved 2,500 steps if I didn't do anything about it. So, and then it was also maybe one of the sparkling things about introducing Liva, actually, because I then started using my phone and carry that one around. There's a pedometer in every smartphone. People are not always aware of that, but you actually have that. So you can look in your smartphone, and you can open, if it's an iPhone, you can open Apple Health, and if it's an Android, you can open Google Fit, and you'll see that it has counted your steps. And then what I found out, on average, I was moving around 5,000 steps, which I really didn't think. But it was basically mostly probably because I didn't think about it. It wasn't because I couldn't do it. I just didn't think about it. It wasn't just, I didn't bring it to my mind. And then I began to be aware of it, and it was difficult, but being aware of it and being constantly aware of it, I was able to bring it up to those 10,000 steps, which I know I ought to go.
Do you think, as a whole, you see positive changes with wearable technology? Are you using it a lot in kind of medical interventions? Because I've seen an awful lot of the general public, buy a Fitbit, buy a watch, and actually say, oh God, yeah, I'm only getting 3,000 steps and I need to get 10,000. And actually, as you point out, moving from something really simple like 3,000 steps is 10,000 could mean that someone loses weight without changing their diet just from that simple change.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I've since we started with Liva and began. We're aware that actually people are carrying around this, because we're talking like 85% of my patients, they actually have a smartphone. So it's extremely easy to have this conversation. My problem then as a GP is that I only see people every third month or once a year or whatever, or even less than that. So it's a question about how much effect I really have on their lifestyle or lifestyle in on a daily basis.
So this intervention, this new project, Liva Healthcare, how do you feel? So initially, describe fully what it is, and how do you think it's going to start to really take effect and help with these changes? Because it's amazing that you've already got the NHS on board in London and Yorkshire, which is, it obviously means it's got some real legs in being able to help preventative healthcare.
I think the most the first thing is that we know lifestyle matters. We know when you talk about diabetes, we can actually revert diabetes by using lifestyle, and this has been proven both in a big Danish study in which was published in JAMA, and there's a big English study coming out of Newcastle recently in December 2017, showing that it can be done, that you can actually revert like 50% of your diabetic patients, which is fantastic, that you can actually have them go off all their medicine. And in that light, obviously NHS, the Danish public health, everyone else is looking around saying, how can we do this effectively, and how can we get out to a bigger population that what we can do by normal coaching? How is that possible? And I guess that's really where Liva comes into play, because what we can see is that when you communicate digitally, the first thing, and that's really what Liva is all about, is to say that Liva is only something if you have a relationship to the one person who's behind the solution. So Liva is a collaborative e-health solution that is the tool between the coach and the person. But you need to establish the relationship in the beginning. You need to meet each other face to face. So all Liva users, they will meet their coach in an in-person, face-to-face setting. And when they have met and they have found out what's possible for this person, what's possible in his or her life, what can they do, then you set your goals, realistic goals, together. And it will often be things like, I should walk 5,000 steps, I should eat breakfast. That will change the life for many overweight people who are at risk of getting diabetes. Then you can add other things to it. But it's really about finding what's realistic and then doing it. And then when you have been successful for a period of time, then you go a little up and you put it up to 6,000 steps, and you add other things to on the diet side. And then you begin to see results, and then you're in the path you want to be in. So Liva is very much the collaborative tool, strengthening the relationship with the person who wants to change lifestyle and the coach.
So looking at diabetes as a specific problem, and we've already talked about this kind of like, is it diet, is it exercise? Are you seeing that a lack of inactivity is a direct causative factor and something that you're focusing on with diabetes more so than diet, or it is very much a tandem thing?
It's very much a tandem thing, because the normal response from your body, if you begin to be more active, that's eating more.
Yeah.
So that's important. And then the other thing that's important is that eating a little less will create weight loss, especially if you increase your activity level, obviously. So it's very motivating to see the scale going down and the weight going down. So it's a tandem. You can't do just the one thing and not the other one. From a medical perspective, there's no doubt that exercise is more important than diet, but from I'd say behavioral change point of view, it's very much a tandem.
Now, one thing I'm intrigued about with the diet side of it is in the private sort of more kind of like private side of nutrition coaching, especially where I sit, rather than the kind of public domain. There's a there's an awful lot of misinformation around sort of trying to reverse diabetes, and I would say that some of the approaches can end up being a little bit more extreme. How much do you find you're trying to fight some of this information? So, for example, low-carb dieting, extreme low-carb dieting, like ketogenic dieting and stuff. Are you using this as a tool, or are you trying to get people to make normal, everyday changes, control a calorie environment, and really get to a point where they're eating something sustainable long-term?
You can use both. It's very much up to the person who's sitting in front of you when you have that initial meeting, and you decide what you want to do, what's your life like, and what do you want? What's your motivation? Where does it come from? But there's no doubt that within the first 8 to 10 weeks, you need to go into, how can you say, I like this. You need to do the changes because you like them. You need to do it because you think it's right and it feels right for you. You can have a diet for your short period of time, and the Roy Taylor study shows that if you do that and you have diabetes, it actually does change the diabetic path in many ways if you really have a strict diet combined with increased exercise. But if you look into the sustainability of your new lifestyle, you really have to think very quickly about doing it in a way so it feels good for you, and so you feel this is the right thing for me, and then your chances of success are much bigger. So I'd say those very extreme diets, I'm not very much for that. I'm much more for small changes that are sustainable, and therefore, when we looked at the study we did in Newcastle, where we could see that actually in the first 4 months there was not much difference between usual care and the Liva precursor, or the former Liva version. There was not much change, but then when we got on the other side of the first 4 months, you could just see the weight just continued to go down, because people have found something that they liked and something they wanted to do for the rest of their lives, instead of just something that they're doing to have a quick fix, or a solution that just didn't last in the same way as the Liva solution did.
I think the big problem that I have to constantly fight with the information as a whole around diet is that anything that is too extreme, if it's not managed in the right way, and you talked about this from a health coaching perspective, the more extreme an environment we go into, the bigger problem we have getting out of it. Like if I go on a ketogenic diet, it's not really sustainable long term, and it's probably unnecessary. So at the end of that 8, 10, 12, 16 weeks, what do I do? Do I go back to my old ways? Do I carry on being ketogenic? So I think unless someone's managed out of that dieting or more extreme phase, we're encountering more and more problems.
Yeah, and that's also why the program we're running now in Northeast London and in Yorkshire is a program, a 12-month program, and I think especially that going from that initial maybe very ambitious diet to a regular diet, that transition is important. And as I said, I very much prefer, and I always the coaches that I'm talking with, I it's much more important to get the relationship, make sure we know each other and we know what we want, and then take small steps. So in that sense, I'm looking much more at the small steps, plate size. I mean, all those kind of small things where you can go in there and help people with the diet. It's not radical. It's something that they can see themselves in, also in the long run. And it's together with their family, it's together with their friends. They don't have to. Because that's the problem is you come into a party and you're decided, I don't want to eat what everyone else is eating. I mean, you'll attract attention, and I mean it's just not where you want to be, especially not when it's the third time you're trying to do it.
I totally agree. What you're trying to do, Carl, sounds absolutely amazing, and if I can ever help, obviously beyond what we're trying to do with this show, we're trying to get the information out there, then absolutely please do ask. If people want to find out more about what you're trying to do, your information and presence on social media, where can we point people towards?
Well, I think then it will be livahealthcare.com.
Yep.
Where you'll be able to find some information about the Liva service, and it would be possible to and follow Liva and see some of the infos. I also think that this thing of using digital health as a health coach is quite. Now you're talking about you're using emails and other solutions. I think it's quite different to the way you normally coach people. When you get real-time information about what people are doing out there, and you then go into coaching them sitting in another place, it's very difficult, that coaching situation. And I think we as there'll be an educational thing for us to do that the right way.
Well, I hope technology can keep evolving in the right kind of way to help people. I think what I don't want technology to do, especially from a health perspective, is keep creating this kind of a barrier so that it's always just like cold information, because we know that fitness initiatives that truly engage people, especially community-based initiatives, really do work. You think about, a simple example is something like CrossFit. It's grown in popularity so much because it's engaged a community. And I think that's what people need to understand, that there's always going to be a limit with technology. Technology can empower us with information and the knowledge and the tools and the tracking, but we still need to engage with every aspect of the changes that we're trying to make and fill ourselves and fill our environment with positive things that help us change. It's very hard to make changes when you're not making changes to your environment. Your environment is still remaining, negative or just unhealthy in general.
And I think especially when you look at the relationship, which I just talked about before, one thing, that's the coach, but Liva actually has a very strong community between the different users. So you can meet the other people who are also wanting to lose weight or changing lifestyle. And I think that's extremely important to have that community aspect in it. And what we can see in the solution that's being used now in those regions in England, you can actually meet people using it to meet each other, to find each other, to find people to go for a walk with. So they'll find each other to establish those social events where they can actually meet and exercise together and do these things in a joint way. And I think when you look at the sustainability of a lifestyle change, I think that's very important, that you can find people with the same mindset as yourself. And that's also, I think, from the digital aspect, because if you look at the way people, that it's basically, if we should, Liva it's a coaching tool, but it's also a community tool. So it's like when an email combined with a Facebook, it's just in one secure environment that where you can have it, and you can find out what information you want to share with your peers and what information you want to share with your coach. But it's really finding this community and finding and strengthening the relationship with people that wants to do the same thing as you. And finding inspiration also.
100%.
Not least.
Yeah, but we still need to inspire people to make these changes. Carl, today's been an amazing chat. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, impressive background, and the projects you've got coming up, which is amazing. Before we go, I've got one kind of last question or ability for you to kind of inspire change in maybe a different area of people. We've talked about the general population quite a bit. There's an awful lot of coaches and trainers that listen to this podcast as well. Would you like to pass on any advice or information to say, okay, there's coaches out there, in my experience, this is what we just really need to be considering when we're helping and inspiring other people to make those changes, so that we can start to have a greater collaborative effort to get this shift of better health happening?
Yeah, I think and that's actually a paper I just wrote, which is also just in press now in Jamie, and it's really about, the most important thing is that you show interest for the person, that you're supportive, and that you recognize what they're doing, and that you positively help people. And then what's really is important is finding out what's most important to the person in front of you, so that you're working together, and if you have found out what's really important to the person, you can help them highlight that when it's difficult. Because as a coach, your most important task is really to help people when it's difficult. We can all help people, when they doing well, recognizing them, helping them, say it's good, and blah blah. That's not difficult. The point is to have people knowing that you're there when it's difficult, telling them that you're there 100% no matter what happens. One of my best coaches, he always says, well, I run marathons. I'm going to be there for you no matter what happens. You're going to hate me, you're going to love me, you're going to think I'm the most stupid person in the world, but I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there all the way. And I think that's very much what it's all about, being a coach. That's being there all the way for the people, so they really feel that you're there when it's difficult, because that's where they need you the most.
Yeah, 100%. It's like any relationship, you need to know that the other person's got your back to support the journey that you're going on. Right, Dr. Carl, thank you very much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. For people that are listening to this show, please share it around. Tag someone in to the social post when you see it that you think could benefit from the show. Click the forward button, share it with a friend. If you've got a medical professional that you know, share it with them. Give them the little tip about Liva Healthcare. Let them know about the initiative. If there's any, kind of medical-based individuals listening to this, then check it out. That is the mission that we're trying to kind of promote today. So please do something with this information today and the links that we're sharing, if you have an avenue to do so, if you have someone to tell about it. Otherwise, thank you for joining me on the show today. If you're new to the show, then have a look at the back catalogue. There's a huge amount of information going on. If this particular episode piqued your interest, maybe have a look at the episode I did with Hazel Wallace, the food medic, that's it. We talked a lot about healthcare and the NHS and her work in it as well. So yes, otherwise I will see you all on next week's show. Let's say a final goodbye to Dr. Carl. Say goodbye, Carl.
Bye, take care.
And I will see you on next week's show. In the meantime, as ever, have an awesome day. Goodbye. Whoa, just before you go, couple of things. Firstly, if you need my help at any point in time, reach out to my Facebook fan page, ask a question, and I'll get back to you. The reason I like my Facebook fan page is because I can send voice memos back, and it's really time efficient for me to be able to help as many people as possible. If you want to find out just anything I'm up to, keep abreast of social media, make sure you're on my email newsletter, and all of that info is at bencoomber.com. If you want nutrition education in the future, then have a look at the BTN Academy. That's our online nutrition courses. If you want to be coached by me, then join my 90-day body and mind transformation program, Fat Loss for Life. And if you're looking for clarity, honesty, simplicity, and research-proven supplements that taste awesome, then go to awesomesupplements.co.uk. That's my links. That's where to find me. That's where to find the cool stuff. I'm out. Have an awesome day. Hey everyone, Vancouver Radio episode It Doesn't Matter.